highlights of his dad. And if you really don't know much about Craig Ironhead Hayward, the guy was a beast of a running back. He absolutely was. This guy, man, this guy was so good when it comes to running the football. He was one of those big backs when he came into the league in 1988, drafted in the first round by the New Orleans Saints. I really wanted the Steelers to pick him up. I thought he would have been a perfect Steeler because we got to see him a lot at the University of Pittsburgh. So Cam Hayward was talking about how great it was to watch his dad run. So Michael Beck, who is one of our best, he's our social media manager here at BTSC, and he runs all of the social media. And I think the social media is pretty good here at BTSC because of the work that Michael Beck does. And one of the things Michael Beck is able to do is he's able to get a hold of players, and they'll follow him back and they'll respond to what Michael has to say. So he saw that tweet out from Cam Hayward when Cam said how awesome it was. This was his quote: "Watching Pops dominate is something special." So Michael Beck, the Canadian Wonder, jumps in and says, if you and your dad met in the A gap, who would win that battle? Cam comes out and says, me. And it's straight up. Now, you know how much Cam Hayward reveres his late father. But in Cam's mind, he's spouting truth. He's saying that he's stopping his dad in their prime, both players' primes, in the A gap. If they met up, that he would stop them stone cold. And I just love that. I love that he says that. You know, so I'm going to make a proclamation here. If I met up with my dad in a Big Mac eating contest, which I placed second in 1996 in a Big Mac eating contest, my dad wouldn't have a chance. I'd beat him. Could be Whopper. I won a Mrs. Fields cookie eating contest once too. Man, I shoved those cookies down my throat, and I got to tell you, I know I'm a big guy now because I've had maybe too many Big Macs in my time, or Whoppers, or Arby's beef and cheddars, or Wendy's Baconators. I really don't eat the Baconator. I mean, it's a cool name though, the Baconator. I've got to give everybody some run if I'm going to just talk about one. But here's the thing: back when I won these contests, I was about 130 pounds. I was a little dude, just wolfing this stuff down and beating everybody. That's probably why I'm a cardiologist, dream right now. Well, actually, maybe a dream for them to have their dream house and maybe their yacht. But with that being said, I'm probably their nightmare too, because I come rolling in and they're like, great, this guy's got a big heart and it's gonna explode any minute. So now, anyways, so let's get back to this. Quotable Steelers. Could you say, besides Vince Williams and Cam Hayward on this certain team, and we already talked about Mike Tomlin, he's definitely the most quotable, and he has the mic the most. But who is the best mic dropper on this current Pittsburgh Steelers squad? Now, I will say this. I think Najee Harris has an opportunity to be magic on the mic. We're already seeing little glimpses of it already with his personality. He's going to be very interesting to listen to. Now, in the past couple of years, we had guys that, like Antonio Brown, that love to have a mic in his face, but I still don't know how quotable AB really was. But when you look at these guys now on the current team, I would probably say it's Cam. It's definitely Vince Williams. And Mike Cochran is saying TJ Watt. Is TJ... Now, TJ does a lot on social media. But is TJ Watt one of those quotable guys that you think of in the vein of some of the guys from the 70s and the 90s that we're going to talk about here in just a little bit. So Ryan O'Toole says Juju shouldn't have a mic or a camera. Juju's quotable, but the stuff that Juju says is in response to what he's doing. The same with Chase Claypool. You know, they're more smack talkers. And when I'm talking about magic on the mic, I'm not talking about talking smack as much as talking in a way that you're being overly clever. That's what I'm saying here. When you're going to say something, you want it to be clever. Now, I'm not saying that Juju's not clever. I'm not saying that Chase Claypool isn't. But what we've heard most from Claypool and Juju has been, you know, throwing shade at a team that just beat them in the playoffs, or were about to beat them in the playoffs, that being the Cleveland Browns. Now, a lot of inspirational stuff comes out of Juju Smith-Schuster's mouth, and what the reason I say that is because Juju is talking now about all the heat that he's gotten. Anybody that throws shade the Steelers' way, that it fires them up, and that's going to make you feel good. But I'm talking about guys that when they say something, that it lasts forever. And we've got some guys that we can definitely talk about that. And I'm going to bring up one, and this is probably not the one that you're going to think of right away, because I know I'm going to say it right now. I'm not going to hold back on this. We're going to be talking about Jack Lambert a lot in the next segment, because Jack Lambert is in the running for one of the most quotable Pittsburgh Steelers of all time. But let's talk about this guy, another linebacker. Now, he didn't say a lot, but he said something that really inspired this team, and we talk about it. Jeff Hartman and myself, and even Dave Schofield, we love to bring this quote up all the time, especially on the post-game show, and it's James Ferrier, number 51, good old Potsy. And Potsy, when he says it's a 5-star matchup because we're in it, man, you gotta love that. That is quotable. That is awesome. And I got to tell you, I'm looking at the live chat. Lots of big friends of the show, new and old. We have a lot of people that are new to the show that have been showing up the past couple of weeks. We've got a lot of people that have been here all along for the longest time. You know, Reggie Rivers, Snowman, Ryan O'Toole, Mike O'Malley. It's great to see all you guys. I'm seeing Owen David here, one of our great Steeler friends from the UK, and my wife has family in the UK. Bully Mob's in here, Adam Batheroy, some new names, Mike Cochran, Mark Brusher. Thanks so much for stopping in. I've got to bring up a guy that was always in the live chat, have not seen his name for a long time. And what's goody? It's Big Marv. Big Marv, it's so good to see you in there, man. Love it. Pamela's in here. We've got Charlie as well. If I didn't mention your name, I do apologize, but thanks so much for being a part of this show. So what we're going to do is we are going to Odessa's in here too. That's a great name from our live chats as well. So it's really nice this is the best thing. And I will say this, sure, I'm here and I represent Behind the Steel Curtain, being the podcast producer. And I think our shows are great, but that's me saying it. It's very easy for me to say that. But when I look at this being the best live chat in all of Steelers blogosphere, and I'd put them up against any of the other 31 NFL teams as well, BTSC's live chats are the best because they're knowledgeable fans. They're not afraid to have an opinion. Sure, they'll rub each other the wrong way sometimes. They'll rub me the wrong way, but I know they've got our back. I love you all, and you're great to have in here. But the fact that when somebody shows up in the live chat and I'm just talking away, I look over and remember, I've got my adult ADHD. I have that problem. I haven't been officially diagnosed it, but I had a counselor of my daughter in school. A school counselor said, "Hey, you should get checked for ADHD." And I'm like, "My gosh, I'm 49 years old. Stop that." But I think I'm starting to have that because I don't. Jeff Hartman will tell you, I do not multitask well. But when I look over and somebody jumps in the live chat and announce themselves, everybody greets them because you guys have become a Steelers family as well, and you're a big part of the show. So thank you so much. So I want you to go ahead and let me take a 5-minute stretch. No, not 5 minutes. Let me try that again. Let me take a 5-second stretch, and we will be back for number 2 when we talk about the greatest quotes in Pittsburgh Steelers history. And a lot of them are going to probably be from number 58. But what will we all decide, not just me, but you all too, as the greatest quote in Pittsburgh Steelers history? What is the most potent quotable? We will find out right after this. If you are on Facebook or YouTube, just hang out for 5 seconds. If you are on any of our podcast platforms where you download your favorite podcasts, be right back. Download number 2, and I'll see you just in a sec. Welcome back to BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. My name is Bryan Anthony Davis. What is up? It is so good to see you. It's Tales from 2 a.m. It's the lighter side of your Pittsburgh Steelers fandom, and that is what we do here. I'm so glad to see all of you in the live chat. And if you are checking this out on our audio-only platform, let me say this. Thank you so much. I can't mention your name because I don't know who you are, but you are a big part of our show's success as well. So thank you so much. Love to hear from each and every one of you. And if you are in our audio only side and you can't talk to me in the live chat because you're not live, what I would like to see is this. I would like to see you go ahead and get a hold of me on Twitter. It's at BTSC BAD. Feel free. I try to get back to everybody that gets a hold of me on social media. You could get a hold of me through Facebook as well. But man, I'd love to hear from you. And I know everybody else at BTSC shares that same philosophy. That's one thing that Jeff Hartman gets so many tweets from his ride or die crew. And I think that's absolutely awesome. And he answers every single one. I know Dave does as well. Everybody here, we'd love to hear from you. So thank you so much. Once again, you're a big part of our success. So if you want to get a hold of me, feel free to do so. I love it. A lot of people, I get this each and every week. I get a lot of people asking me where I get my jerseys because I do wear a lot of Steeler jerseys. And I get them from DHgate. I'll just tell you that because a lot of people will email me and ask that. And I love it. And I try to wear a different one each time. Today I'm wearing the Batman from 1967. TJ Watt did not play in 1967, but he wasn't alive in 1967. I wasn't alive in 1967. How about that? Gosh, because Big Marv just said that I am a young man still, so I love that. But no, I love the Batman jerseys. I would love to see them wear these on the field just once. That would be amazing. Love that. Love those jerseys. They're so cool. And they're long sleeve jerseys. And oh man, that'd be really cool. So let's do this. Let's talk about some of the greatest quotes in Pittsburgh Steelers history. Now, we already talked about James Ferrier, and it's a 5-star matchup because we are in it. I think that's great. I think this was a quote, but this was actually he talked more about saying this. But when Ben Roethlisberger said to Jerome Bettis after the AFC Championship game loss after the 2004 season, just give me one more year, I'll get you that trophy. That was a pretty big deal. Now we're going to talk about one of the most quotable Pittsburgh Steelers of all time. And it's Jack Lambert. Man, I bet you if we did a top 10, most of them would be Jack Lambert. And I will tell you that. I believe one of my favorites would be Tony Defio talks about this one all the time. I believe he said this in a highlight against the Dallas Cowboys. That will cool your bleep off. I just remember, man, if he just knocks you down and you hear him say that, I love it. Mike Cochran said this, and I had this on my list to bring up. No one can be allowed to intimidate us. We're supposed to be the intimidators. Yeah, that is a great quote. I will, there was one from another linebacker, Greg Lloyd, where, man, they didn't have the bleep button going on there. But when I believe his big thing was after they beat the Colts, we're going to the bleeping Super Bowl on NBC. That caused a lot of problems way back then. My favorite Jack Lambert quote, though. There are so many, man. Welcome to the NFL rookie when he knocked John Elway out of the game on Labor Day weekend in 1983. John Elway's first ever NFL game. He knocks him out. Welcome to the NFL rookie. You got to love it. But when you talk about the greatest quotes in Pittsburgh Steelers history, I have to put this one up here. And it wasn't one that he mentioned during the season. He mentioned in his Hall of Fame speech. If I could live my life over, I'd be a football player. And you damn well better believe I'd be a Pittsburgh Steeler. That is the quote for me, man. I absolutely love that. That's an absolute favorite. Now, there's some lesser known Steelers that you might not remember. Some all should, but if you're younger, then you probably would not remember this. It is Lethon Flowers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, man. They were a team back in the early 2000s, and they ended up winning it in 2002. But they talked a lot of smack. And when you've got a guy like Warren Sapp on your team, you know there's going to be a lot of shenanigans as far as trying to intimidate, trying to talk. I mean, if this was a Tampa Bay show, I am probably going to have the number one quote being the best quoted Tampa Bay Buck is being Warren Sapp. But they used to do something that was really, I thought it was despicable. I mean, it was one of those things that they were trying to be intimidators before the game, and they would run through the team's warmups and try to disrupt the warmups by running through. And they did that to the Steelers in 2001. And it ticked off a lot of people. You know, it was really cool, though, that after they did that in the pregame, Steelers went out and sacked Tampa Bay quarterback Brad Johnson 10 times in that game. Man, that really fired them up. So that led to one Lethon Flowers, who was a 5th rounder out of Georgia Tech in 1995. He played safety for the team. He was a special teams ace. Number 41, Lee Flowers. And he called them paper champions. and said, hey, they're only champions on paper. And so the next year, that ticked them off when the Steelers came into their house on Monday Night Football, and they were going to run through again. And not only run through, this is why I hated Warren Sapp. I hated this guy just because of his great player. Now, you had a guy like Keyshawn Johnson who talked a lot of smack on that team too, but I didn't hate Keyshawn Johnson. I was entertained by him. But Warren Sapp was kind of a wang. And he would skip through there. Like he was sashaying through the tulips. He would like skip through and expect nobody to be upset about it. Well, Jerome Bettis was waiting for him. And also James Ferrier was there too. It started a big brawl. I remember Jerome Bettis just pushed him and cracked him, and he just kept on skipping through to let his teammates get the wrath. He ran away. He didn't stay in the brawl. He started the brawl and kept on running. Skipping. As his teammates got dominated, and then Pittsburgh came out and dominated most of the game. So I know it was only a 17-7 victory, but the Steelers punted. They had so many sacks. I think they had 6 or 7 sacks in that game. They just, oh my gosh, they killed that team. That defense was good too. But, you know, I just remember paper champions and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers trying to be offended because Lee Flowers called them paper champions. Like all of a sudden they were trying to make the Steelers the bad guys, and they started the whole thing. So I kind of love that. It's one of my favorite stories. What are some great quotes that you can think of? Mike Cochran had that really good one, so thanks, Mike. But yeah, anytime the Intimidators, we are supposed to be the Intimidators. Love that. The other great quote, and this was from John Madden, not the quote, but John Madden started this. And Chuck Noll finished it, because before the Steelers went into the AFC championship game, the Dolphins got knocked out by the Raiders the week before. And then the Steelers went to Oakland to take on the Raiders. And a lot of people thought that the Raiders were going to the Super Bowl that year to face the Miami Dolphins. Excuse me, the Minnesota Vikings. And after the Steelers beat the Raiders to go to the Super Bowl to take on Minnesota, John Madden said, hey, that's okay. The Super Bowl was last week because the two best teams were absolutely the Dolphins and the Raiders. So that's your Super Bowl. So don't even worry about the Super Bowl. So Chuck Noll comes out and says this. You know, the coach of the Raiders said the two best teams in football played yesterday, and that was the Super Bowl. Well, the Super Bowl was 3 weeks from now, and the best team in pro football is sitting right here in this room. I love that. Man, I love that. Chuck Noll, he had some great quotes over the years. He had some that ticked some people off, like definitely like Franco Who. That upset some people. But Chuck Noll was very quotable as well. I mean, Mike Tomlin gets the credit for being so quotable. But Chuck Noll was, my gosh, he had some bite. Big Marv says this, and this is on the list. But it's funny because he said it in t-shirt form. Greg Lloyd, and I want this t-shirt. This is one thing that I don't have. And I don't know if I could pull off the sleeveless on the t-shirt like Greg Lloyd, number 95. Man, that guy had some physique to him. But when you sport a t-shirt that says, I wasn't hired for my disposition, that's quotable. You don't even have to say it. You wear it, and that's your quote. And man, that speaks volumes. That's louder than anything, man. I love that quote. Wasn't hired for my disposition. What are some other great quotes? I mean, gosh, Lambert had so many. You know, you can't forget about Myron Cope, too. Myron Cope had some of the great ones. Of course, you always knew you were going to hear yoy and double yoy, but the terrible Tau is poised to strike. Man, when you hear that, you got fired up. You really did. Here's another thing from Lambert. What happened? Well, of course, you know Lambert's quarterbacks should wear dresses. That's the big thing. And but this is a great one, and I didn't know this until recently. After a 1981 hit on the quarterback Brian Sipe of the Browns, Jack Lambert answered reporters' questions in the locker room, and they were talking about Ben Dreith, who was, man, he was a referee that I never really liked. He called a penalty, and he told Lambert that he hit Brian Sipe way too hard. And so the press said, "Did you?" He's like, "Yeah, I hit him as hard as I could." I mean, that's just great there. I mean, I think it's easy. It would not be hard to go ahead and say that Jack Lambert is the most quotable. But here's a great quote, too, because in 1976, the Steelers probably had one of their best teams of all time. And they lost in the AFC Championship game. They did not have Franco Harris. They did not have Rocky Bleier. They didn't even have a kicker. Their kicker was hurt in that game. That team was just a mess. And they were a really good team. They had one of the best defenses ever, but they were beat up going in that game. And this was the year that Bradshaw missed 6 games and Mike Krusick went 6-0 and never threw a touchdown pass. Think about that. That's how dominant your defense is. Because you have not just your defense, but your running game. You have a quarterback that goes 6-0 the first 6 games of his career. I mean, this is not a guy who's been around. He was a rookie. And Ben Roethlisberger ended up breaking that record. He really broke that record. He smashed that record in 2004. But it was another guy, number 15, Mike Krusick from Boston College. And so Bradshaw did play in that game, but they were beat up. They lost. And after the game, Jack Lambert just says, "Look, give me a 6-pack and 30 minutes to rest, and let's go out and play them again." Man, is that not a great quote? Is that not a true warrior? Man, I love it. Here's a great Mike Tomlin quote that a lot of people don't remember, but it's talking about, they were basically talking about Willie Parker's claims that the Steelers were not focusing their game plan enough around the running game. So Mike Tomlin just had this to say: "Every time I walk by 5 Lombardi trophies, not 5 rushing titles." Willie's comments could be construed as selfish, which he is not. So I kind of like that. He's sending a message. He's sticking up for his player, but he's definitely sending a message. You know, there's some people that think Terry Bradshaw was a super quotable player. And he's more quotable now. But as a player, he had some good quotes, but a lot of them was trying to stick up for himself. But we talked about Jack Lambert in his Hall of Fame speech. And this is a Hall of Fame speech that I absolutely adore. And it happened. What he said ended up happening in that very speech. "What I wouldn't give right now to put my hands under Mike Webster's butt just one more time. Thank you, Mike." Next thing you know, Mike Webster rolls on stage, not wearing his gold jacket. He was already in the Hall of Fame, not wearing his jacket. Rolls on stage, wearing a polo shirt, gets down. They throw him a football, gets down, snaps Bradshaw the ball. Man, that was a great moment. Really great moment. I spent a couple weeks ago, I spent like a Friday night, like after midnight on YouTube. I needed my beauty rest, and of course I didn't get it because look at this face. And you know what? I just spent all this time watching old Hall of Fame speeches from Pittsburgh Steelers, and they were great. And they were chock full of awesome moments. We talked about two of them. If you get a chance to watch those on YouTube, do it. They are incredible if you want to hear about old stuff from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here's a great one from the early 2000s. And Plexico Burress, a lot of people called him Plexiglass. In fact, Shannon Sharp focused his attack on the Steelers receiver by calling him that. And then he stiffed arm a former Steeler and a Hall of Famer, Rod Woodson, to the turf and trotted in the end zone for the game-winning touchdown to end Baltimore's season in the playoffs. And he just had a great quote. He just responded, and it was a matter of fact. Last time I checked, plexiglass would bend, but it did not break. That's pretty cool. Myron Cope had a lot of great quotes. He was talking about Dan Snyder to send a representative to ask Cope to refrain from using a phrase calling the Washington Redskins red faces. And wow, I never knew that. But Cope wasn't having any of it. And I'm not here talking about whether Cope's name for the team was appropriate or not. All I'm going to say is that he stuck up for himself. And he said, if that boy billionaire thinks he can shut me up, he can stick his head in a can of paint. Who says that? Who tells you to go stick your head in a can of paint? That's crazy. I tell you what, lots of fun, man, just lots of fun talking about the Quotable Steelers. And I'm going to go back to the live chat here and see what we've got, see if we've got any more as far as great quotes. Portna says, I can't remember the Bradshaw quote, but when Jefferson Street Joe passed away, Bradshaw said Joe was the most talented quarterback he ever saw. Man, he was. He was really talented. He had his problems, but he is revered as a really great Steeler. Bettis quote, Reggie Rivers says this, Bettis quote, when he runs over people, mash mouth football, Pittsburgh style. Love it. Mike Cochran brings this Jack Lambert one up. The Steelers drafted guys who were bigger, stronger, and faster than me, but they never found one who could take my job away from me. Man, that's a great quote. Wow. So we've got a live chat here too. One of the great contributor here, Dave Shipley. We really appreciate it. Ike and Porter were the best at talking bleep. Finally got your email correct. Thanks to my wife. I'm no IT guy. I appreciate that. I'm not either. I've got a 13-year-old son who, my gosh, I think he could run tech support at Apple. That's how good he is. And I go to him all the time to help set up email, set up everything. And my wife was laughing at me the other day. She's like, what happened to you? You used to know how to do this. Now you're turning into your dad as far as electronics go. And I'm like, I can't handle electronics anymore. So thanks, Mrs. Shipley. I appreciate that. And thanks for the $5. But Dave's right. Those are two guys that we didn't talk about. My gosh, Ike Taylor, he was definitely quotable. His quotes were great. I don't have an exact Ike Taylor quote, but even last year when he he called Grandpa Strong. We took this. He said that James Washington on an interview with him was Grandpa Strong. And so Grandpa Strong, that ended up being our nickname for him. I mean, that guy was definitely magic on the mic too. But Joey Porter, man, probably one of the best. I think if Jack Lambert's number one is being Quotable Steelers, Joey Porter might be number two. He was entertaining. He was controversial. I will never forget this. Right before the Indianapolis Colts game, they were not supposed to win, and he guaranteed a victory. And I'm talking about the playoff game. This was the 14-2 juggernaut Colts of 2005. And he's like, he guarantees a victory. And everybody's like, no, don't do that. No. And then so they win the game. And Cowher, who I love Bill Cowher. And I love how he interacted with his players. And they're doing the game ball. And Bettis is talking about how nobody believed in this team. And he said that Peasy, that was the nickname for Porter, Peasy was right, and then Cowher jumps in and you could hear him in the background going, yeah, will you just shut up this week, Peasy? And he's like, then he just yells, hell no, they shot me in Denver because they were going to play the Broncos. And he's like, you will know, let's ride on 3, and started the whole let's ride. And that's where the name for Jeff Hartman's show comes from. Let's ride on 3. And that's something they do all the time. So let's ride is probably one of the greatest Steeler quotes too, because that's what gets that defense fired up between games. And the guys leading the chants, who ride, we ride, who ride, we ride. They change over the years, but it's always a leader. I believe Ferrier did it after Porter. I know Harrison did it. Shazier did it. Now TJ's doing it. And that is a tradition that will continue. But man, I love it. PC was entertaining. That's my sister's favorite player just because of his mouth, because he was entertaining. We used to always laugh every time he said something. And I mean, he did it again on Super Bowl week. Going after Jeremy Stevens, a tight end. Jeremy Stevens was trying to get his name out there and went after Porter, and Porter just shut him down. That was great. I'm going to give you one guy, though, that was not quotable whatsoever. But he was really quotable because of what he never said. He did all his talking on the field, and that's Troy Polamalu. So not quotable, definitely not quotable. When he said something, you wanted to listen to what he had to say because you knew it was going to be good. It was going to be poignant. It wasn't going to be ripping on anybody else, but he spoke volumes on the field. And you can be a leader without being emphatic and quotable. Sean Manahan gives us $2 and says, love that 05 team. Man, I love that 05 team too. I love all these teams. Man, I love the 1984 team. I love the 1989 team. They didn't win them. I love the 2021 team. I love the 2020 team. As long as there's a black and gold team, that's it. James Ferrier Big Marv brings up James Ferrier. We talked about this, probably one of the first quotes we talked about. It's a 5-star matchup because we're in it. Yep. I'm going to leave you guys all with this. It's a 5-star show because you guys are in the live chat. I appreciate that. So Ryan O'Toole says this. I do like this. Ike said Troy spoke to Jesus on the field. He did, man. He really did. Man, he crossed himself before every play. There was never a play he did not cross himself before. That's a man strong in his faith. You got to love it. So, hey, thanks so much for joining the show. This was a fun time. What did we establish here today? We established that The Pittsburgh Steelers, they're quotable. Dave Shipley brings up Chuck Noll saying Franco who. That's something we brought up too in some of the Chuck Noll quotes. Man, Chuck Noll was quotable too. The Steelers speak volumes on the field, but they're magic on the mic too. So they're not just hype. Just like Hammer says, I'm dope on the floor and I'm magic on the mic. I love it. I always wanted to be dope on the floor, which I will never be. I'd love to be magic on the mic someday, maybe. But I need you to do 3 things for me. I'm going to say 4. Always check us out here on BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. That's really important for all your Pittsburgh Steelers needs. Not just my show. Whether it's Jeff Hartman, whether it's Dave Schofield, whether it's Rich Schofield, whether it's Jeffrey Benedict, Michael Beck, Tony Defio, the boys from Down Under, Matt Peveril, and Mark Davison. Check all those guys out. Check out us. Check out Shannon White on the editorial side too. Check out everybody. And we love it. We love that you're a part of us. And if you want to join our podcast team, if you saw the article, send me a sample of your past work if you've done anything. And that's something we'd like to take a look at as well. But the 3 things I need you to do for me, it's simple. Be safe. That's most important. Be safe in your life. Be true to yourself. That's almost more important. Don't be afraid to be you. You got to be you because we love you. That's who you are, and don't ever be ashamed of who you are. But always be behind the steel curtain. For Brian Davis, that's me. For Bryan Anthony Davis, that's me too. I will see you all later. Thank you so much. I love you, Steeler Nation.